great purpose, when you have big things to do, I have just enjoyed throughout 35 years the opportunity to try and do big things and then found that those big things could be accomplished.
Thank you, Sue, for joining us on this exclusive on GeoBuiz.
Thank you.
I've gone through your profile and some of the articles you wrote on your own and the statements you made. The recent talk you gave at the primary school function was ceremony was very interesting. You said to those kids, I did more sci-fi stuff than we really know, because sci-fi is what is really interesting for kids, and I think it's a very good way to convey about geospatial to the kids. I really like your statement.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so can you give us some examples on how this sci-fi stuff is getting on this unclassified area of geospatial?
The reason I said that is when you have great purpose, when you have big things to do, what I've found over the course of my career is there is the wherewithal to do big things. I have just enjoyed throughout 35 years the opportunity to try and do big things and then found that those big things could be accomplished. Whether it was early in my career building collection systems that just were trying to do something that seemed physically impossible, but we found a way through engineering and partnership with industry to do, or whether it was the formation of InQtel, which was kind of unbelievable that we could figure out how to go to the Silicon Valley with big problems in an unconstrained way. So that's my history. With GeoInt, I think we have the same opportunity, but it's just much more opportunistic because of how many players are in the space. So it is what I will say, a GeoInt world, where almost every problem that we face in society, from humanitarian to nation building to intelligence challenges, comes down to your command of physical space and the extent to which you can know it. And if I can see those patterns, I can understand it in really exciting ways. And with the explosion in commercial satellites and analytic capability and other content, you imagine putting those two things together, and I think we'll be able to understand the world in a way we never have before.
There's been recently great emphasis from NGA on unclassified GeoInt. Mm-hmm. So why do you think this moment of unclassified GeoInt has arrived, and what's the relevance of unclassified GeoInt for NGA?
I think it's arrived just as part of the technical revolution, as we put sensors on everything, as we put smart devices in every person's hand, as humans wanted to understand how to make sense of all this information. Geography and geospatial reference just turns out to be a great way to do that. And so you have this technical and cultural convergence of interest, and then you have this great energy of people just building on one another. 30, 40 years ago, we were stuck with the knowledge of people around us. In this world, you have the knowledge of everyone who can connect a device. So you just have this explosion in interest in geography and geospatial reference. So if you take that and you're in our business of geospatial intelligence, support to national policymaking, support to warfighters, you've got a pretty good history of using sources of information that we thought of, that we design systems collect, and now you have all this content that is also about your world. Well, that is, you can't ignore it because it's unclassified. Instead, what you want to do is say, think of how I can use that to add to what I know from more explicit sources.
This is an arm movement that we are currently with unclassified data and GeoInt. So how are you working with various agencies in working towards putting your unclassified data of GeoInt for the sake of public administration?
The Ebola crisis. So that was just a worldwide crisis, and our president said all hands on deck, and we were one of those hands, and so we said we can help. We recognized that our content, our maps, our elevation data, our population data, could really be useful to a set of people who didn't wear the same uniforms that the military did, but they wore white coats. And they didn't have access to classified systems, they had access to the World Wide Web. So we're sitting here with information we know that will be useful to people who can't get it in the way that we classically done, and we're like, solve that problem. And we did. It took us a couple weeks, but we got the information out there. I think the results speak for themselves in terms of our data contributed to the understanding that allowed us to stem that tide. Fast forward a few months and you have the Nepal earthquake. Learning the lessons of Ebola, within hours, we did the same thing. We said, I have elevation, geospatial, map data, that if I make it available on the web, just through a portal that anyone can get to, now we have helped first responders and the military and humanitarian crisis to immediately know and have a perspective on location that they might not have had we not been able to put in.
The processing time for GeoInt data has really come down from days to weeks to hours, right? So weeks to days to hours. So are we again talking about some Avengers kind of sci-fi stuff here happening around with the processing?
And actually I think that's on the horizon. For us, the big advance is to figure out a process to take a government agency that was used to dealing with a classified world and figuring out how we make that same information available to people that couldn't before use it. So my weeks to hours was mostly us figuring out the process to do it. Now, your sci-fi world of near instantaneous access, I think is closer than we imagine.
And GA has come up with this strategy for 2015. Can you just throw some light into the new strategy from NGA? What is it about?
Our new strategy is really focusing on our mission, which is to have such command of geospatial intelligence that we really enable better decision making. So that's what it is. And what's great about that mission statement is it's the outcome we're trying to achieve. In other words, it doesn't matter the bits and bytes if I can't affect somebody else's use in the time frame they need it. So you have to have the craft of commanding geospatial intelligence, and so we're going to work on that, but you have to make it available for decision making in the time that they need it. Our vision is been pretty consistent. Know the earth, show the way, understand the world. I think it's an inspiring vision because it reaches several aspects of what we're about. Have perfect craft? No. Be more than just describing something, but actually present it in a way that somebody else can use it to affect a future decision. And then understand the world is, it's not just about our content, it's about our content and content. Understand the world. So, pretty simple. The strategy has a few major elements. The first is there isn't any magic other than our people. Data is wonderful, but our people help act on that data. So it's to really invest in our women and men. The second is, when I talk about this profession, we want to be great at it. We must command geospatial intelligence, and with the explosion in content, it is really pushing us to be ever better at what we do. The data is going to come to us. We aren't going to have to work as hard to acquire the data, and our expertise is going to be about the use of the data, and that's the profession. The third is partnership, and I think that's actually the most exciting. We are in a world that you aren't going to go alone. We come from a world of stovepipe intelligence where we each did something very specialized, and there was a big line of demarcation between government work and commercial work. We all have a part of the same whole, and we need to act that way. So we want to have partnerships with international partners because they're a member of what we call Team GeoInt. We're going to partner with industry because their advances are driving us in ways that we can't think. With academia, who are thinking about use, and our other intelligence partners, because those other elements of the intelligence community when combined with our contextual information, provide an incredibly rich picture of the answer. And then the last is where I started. We want to be customer-centric. We want to live in our customer space. So as they go, we go. Where they need to be, we will be there with them.
Okay, coming to your men and women at NGA, when you joined in, you said to them, hey, buckle up. And you wrote an open letter to them about the timely acquisition, right technologies, data and services. What was the need for that open letter, and how did that bring in a change in the current setup and working of NGA?
So there are wonderful things about working in the government and working in a bureaucracy. You can count on it. It has a rigor to it, and it has a fairness to it. And if you've been doing something for a long time, you believe you understand all those things and what you're going to provide. The cool thing is that times change. And even if our mission is exactly the same, the way we have to prosecute our mission is different. But we have real humans, and every once in a while, they need to be reminded that we can be big. And so to me, the buckle up, we're going to do big things, Robert Cardillo's vision, my letter on acquisition was really about, remember, we aren't in the business to do what we've done. We're in the business to achieve the mission we have, and this world has changed, it's faster, it demands using more partners, and so come with us, buckle up, we're gonna go.
You also went one step ahead. You told to them, hey, do this 101 Agile course and do this orientation towards agility. So how is the progress of those things within the department?
I'm excited about the progress we're making in a short time. I take no credit for it. I think the credit is to our women and men who actually are so committed to the mission that they wanted to go, to the vision we've set that says, wow, there is a point that we want to achieve, and we have people who like to achieve things, to their fundamental skill, and then just a little bit of specific direction that says we are going to achieve these things. And so I'm excited with what I'm seeing. We're a big ship. It takes a little bit of time to turn, but I think if you were in our building, you could feel it. If you were our partners, you can sense it. And if you look at our product, you can tell that it is a different material product than it was even a few short months ago.
I totally agree on that. I realized that when the NGA stuff has moved on to GitHub, it's a totally different change, and I should compliment NGA on that.
GitHub is a great example of if you set a course for your folks and you empower them to think big, they will do things. So putting things out on GitHub, putting applications in iTunes or Google Play is part of not only making us more accessible and more transparent, but it also is sparking that innovation that is going to be the engine internally for where we want to go.
You also talked about very important and interesting point on the way to work with industry partners, because that's the key for collaboration. So what kind of change do you envisage for an NGA when it comes to working with industry partners? How are you bringing this change to NGA?
So I think the first element of working with industry partners is having a really clear vision of what we want. If you were, there's no better partner than someone who has a very strong opinion of where they want to go, because now you can do something. So the first is the vision we've set, the strategy we've implemented has given us a really clear view of what we must achieve, and I think that already our partners would say is great benefit. The second thing is we have really three kinds of partners. We have those who have been with us for a long time, and most of our achievements are with them and through them. So we want to bring them with us, not to cast them aside because they're not the flavor of the month, but to really bring them with us. And so with them, it's having a really clear dialogue of how our mission has either changed or the techniques we need to use. There are a lot of small businesses that have great ideas that we want to take advantage of. And we have a strong investment in the Small Business Administration, the Small Business Office, because there are special needs if you're small, because the government can cost a lot to interact with, and so having engagements that are attentive to their special needs is one. But this third piece is building an architecture that allows some of these innovative projects and services to be just dropped into our network, to have an unclassified environment where it is easy access, and then find out whether it's a good solution and go forward. So work with our know our mission, work with our historic partners on the changes that we see, and then the new companies to both have an architecture they can drop into and an opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities without them having to make a huge investment.
Okay, that's a great way to promote small and medium enterprises, I should say. And with this, I would like to conclude this discussion, and thank you very much for joining us on GeoBuiz.
Well, thank you.